Shinji Higuchi was born in Tokyo, Japan on September 22, 1965. When he was young, he always enjoyed watching TV shows like Ultraman and movies like Godzilla, his favorite being Godzilla vs. Megalon, directed by Jun Fukuda, and was a huge fan of Japanese special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya, a man known as the god of Tokusatsu and the master of monsters and miniatures. As a teenager, he became one of the founders of Daikon Films, commonly known today as Gainax, with Hideaki Anno, Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, and Takami Akai, and worked as a storyboard artist for their anime and tokusatsu productions. Higuchi's first project as production assistant was Sakio Komatsu's Sayonara Jupiter in 1984. When the movie premiered, Higuchi went to see it with his girlfriend at the time. They broke up after she found out that Higuchi was involved in a film that was considered a major disappointment for Toho. He would then move on as an uncredited special effects assistant on Koji Hashimoto and Koji Yakusho's Return of Godzilla, with special effects director Teruyoshi Nakano, and another project for Daikon named Orochi Strikes Back, directed by Takami Akai, being Higuchi's first time as a special effects director. In these films, he founded the concept of showing the monster from low angles and the point of view of that of a human being to create a sense of scale. This would allow Higuchi to grow during his career. Higuchi would then be involved in various projects throughout the 80s and 90s, but his career didn't really kick off until he worked as a writer, assistant director, and storyboard artist for Hideaki Anno's Neon Genesis Evangelion. Did you know that Shinji Ikari was named after Shinji Higuchi? He would also go on to direct the special effects for Shusuke Kaneko's Gamera trilogy in the 90s, Toho's reboot of the Gamera films from the Showa era, produced by Daiei Film Company Limited. Higuchi would later return to the Godzilla franchise for Kaneko's Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, and direct the special effects, and work as a CG animator. Eventually in 2005, his first debut as a director was in Lorelei, Witch of the Ocean, which was a huge box office success for Toho. Then Higuchi directed the remakes of Shiro Moritani's Sinking of Japan and Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress, two of Toho's beloved classics. A while ago, Shinji Higuchi has worked as a storyboard artist again for various anime series, such as Hiroyuki Imashi's Kill la Kill, and most notably, Hideaki Anno's Rebuild of Evangelion. Eventually, Higuchi returns to the director's chair for Toho, and directed two live-action adaptations of the famous manga series from Hajime Isayama, Attack on Titan, after Tetsuya Nakashima stepped out of the project. Higuchi and Anno would then reunite to direct yet another remake, but of Toho's biggest star, in the new Shin Godzilla. Higuchi also worked as a cinematic cutscene director for the video game Nioh. Shinji Higuchi has tons of works under his belt, and going over them all would take a lot of work. While working on projects, it was very evident that he took pride in his work and in his country by taking influence from trends and events from the real world and applied it to his work. In the mid to late 90s, Higuchi used the idea of the world ending in 1999 for Gamera, and in the future, he would use the 3/11 incident and the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki for Shin Godzilla. Higuchi did find himself entering the Star Wars craze and added elements of George Lucas's masterpiece into his own. Higuchi's pride for filmmaking expands even further. As a fan of Eiji Tsuburaya, Higuchi loves taking influence from his work, most notably the use of tokusatsu, which consisted of actors in monster suits and miniature sets, as well as other practical effects such as pyrotechnics. Higuchi utilized this technique since the very beginning, yet during a time that was known as the Ice Age of tokusatsu, in which films that used the technique were coming to a decline during the mid-70s. But Higuchi would be the one to save it, and push its use for decades to come. Higuchi would eventually put a twist to tokusatsu. As the digital age of special effects have already arrived, everyone had been using computer-generated imagery. Higuchi took tokusatsu and used modern special effects technology to enhance it, thus creating his famous hybrid style of special effects, which was featured in his colossal two-part Attack on Titan. Sadly, it would not be long before Toho, a company most famously known for its tokusatsu films, would begin to adapt to the use of computer-generated effects, which may have taken a toll on tokusatsu. In the recent Shin Godzilla, the film was originally going to be using traditional tokusatsu effects as seen in Attack on Titan and Ultraman shows at the time, which included a Godzilla animatron. But Toho suggested that CGI should be used for the film, while still using miniatures, which the scenes with said miniatures were shot using an iPhone 6. This change was problematic for the production. This meant a good chunk of the budget was spent on unused practical effects. So the Godzilla vs. Evangelion marketing campaign was started, so fans could fund the project and be aware of Hideaki Anno and Shinji Higuchi's involvement in the film. Could this mean that Tokusatsu will be left in the dust like it almost did in the 70s? Only time will tell, and maybe Higuchi can find another way to keep it strong. Shinji Higuchi will be known for two things: his work and his ambition to make movies with the sole purpose to entertain. This is what makes Shinji Higuchi very inspirational. He was an innovator. He carries on the same spirit and drive that Eiji Tsuburaya used to invigorate the Japanese effects industry, which makes him one of the greatest Japanese filmmakers to this day, and one of the best tokusatsu creators ever. As there aren't many people nowadays who do such a thing, Shinji Higuchi will also be known as the last tokusatsu creator of our generation, a pioneer who just so happened to appear late in the game.